all the previous sessions focused a lot on the manufacturing side of the equation. How many plants have been approved? Where has it been approved? There was, of course, a lot of emphasis also on the skills equation. But I think, should we look at other aspects of the semiconductor innovation ecosystem? Because even when we spoke to Mr. Sushil Pal from METI, he said that ISM 2.0 is not going to be hinged only on manufacturing. We're going to take an ecosystem approach to it. What can we do on chip design? What can we do on other aspects of innovation? If you can give us your own perspective.
Yeah, sure. I think some of the speakers earlier mentioned this point. India has a far more robust and advanced design ecosystem. Practically every chip made in the world has a Bangalore hand to it, right? But just like...
if you can keep your mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like, pre-independence, most of the wars that the British won were under the Indian army, but we never got the credit. So we've had that problem. We have the skills, we have, but what we don't have is the ability to take risks and patience. And partly it's also, I think somebody else mentioned it, it's also media, right? Everybody expects some of these to happen in 2 years or 5 years. These things take a long time. They are like a Chinese bamboo tree which grows underground for a long time and then suddenly sprouts. So we can't see progress in innovation like the way you usually see tangible ones in manufacturing. You have land, you've got machinery, you've got value add and all of that. So how do you value an IPR? An IPR is like a piece of art. Right, or a great piece of music. Sometimes, it is appreciated only when somebody is dead. Like, for example, Van Gogh or even R.D. Burman, right? He was appreciated when his music is appreciated much more later than it was then. So you need the kind of a Shrota to be able to do that. That ecosystem is still not in India. My own opinion and our journey at Saankhya has always been looking at that aspect and the ability to take risks. And like Pankaj mentioned earlier, people don't know the kind of risks entrepreneurs take to actually go build the ecosystem. Well, the government does what it has to do. It's the entrepreneurs and the risks that we take will eventually define whether we'll be able to do some of these or not. And one final point, we have been also focused excessively on the bottom-up part, largely because I think the government is being advised by a lot of foreign transplants. Right, so people don't ask us, right? We know what it is to build a semiconductor company in India. We've been doing it for 17 years, right? Even before the world was fashionable. And a lot of people here in this panel would appreciate, they would laugh at us. In 2007, if I had gone to PwC and asked him if I want to build a semiconductor company, he would have shooed me away. And a lot of investors did shoo us away, right? Our first set of investors were none of the big tech entrepreneurs from Bangalore. They're all villagers. And I fondly call them NH4 angels because NH4 is a road that connects Bangalore and Pune. So it's between in the villages between Bangalore and Pune who invested in semiconductor companies in India. And that's what is the story about Micron also, I guess, right? The potato farmer had actually invested in Micron initially. So we have to look at also the top-down approach, which is basically you create new inflection points. Very difficult. But if you create a new inflection point, you actually succeed very big. If 8 years ago, if I told you NVIDIA would have been a $5 trillion company, none of the consulting companies in the world would have predicted that.
Today or after PwC for some?
Yeah. No, I'm not. Sorry, I don't mean to be personal.
Athar got a delayed flight and came.
He's getting ragged here. So these things just happen, right? This happen. And top-down ecosystem, there are 3 or 4 inflection points that have come in, and that come in every decade. In the 70s, it was the microprocessor that pitched Intel to where it is. Then TI in that following year. Then I don't know if you know a company called ARM that actually took off because the mobile ecosystem took off, right? And then NVIDIA accidentally got into AI. Not many people know that.
Yeah.
GPUs were there, but they were meant for something else. So there are technologies like D2M that we've been working on, which could actually pitchfork us to a different level. If you start to follow an NVIDIA or somebody else, it's very difficult to beat them at their own game. You have to change the rules of the game, and those are much more difficult and much more difficult to quantify. They're very intangible. That's the problem.
I want to get the other startup founder on the panel, Nikul, who's come all the way from Gujarat. Thank you so much. Do you agree with Parag that our government is too much under the influence of foreign transplants, he calls it, that they are not looking at this from the top down, they're looking at it only from the bottoms up?
First of all, thank you so much for inviting.
You can keep the mic a little closer. Yeah.
Is it now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, as per my perspective, as I just started 3 years back as a startup, I can say now we are a company. I started a vertical approach where currently a lot of IoT modules are coming in picture. As sir mentioned that new policy has the module, chip, everything in that policy, right? So we thought that as I have a 15 years of experience into that field, I thought that there is a module requirement first where a lot of neighboring companies like Aspirational and all are holding their hands in the products, right? So we don't have to create a semiconductor ecosystem. We have to create an ecosystem or a cluster where chip to product concept be in India. If you see our neighboring countries, they are creating the products, they are supplying products to other countries. Majority in India, we are importing those products, right? And in those products, the chips are developed in their countries only. So if we are building a chips, we have to build the products also, and we have to accept that those product has to have an Indian chip. So as per my perspective, government is doing good things. As a startup, yeah, definitely if it's a 10 years before when I just started my career, 15 years before, then there is no system. Even I want to do R&D. Once I pass out, I do a lot of interviews because I have an interest in R&D. There is very less companies. I have to go to Bangalore. I have to take job in Bangalore. Then after 5 years, I came back to Gujarat, where I shifted to my native, right?
Right.
So I think this type of clusters is needed in India, where there has to be a product company, there has to be a chip company. Now assembly, manufacturing, everything is there. Now we want to build a product nation.
Mr. Ravi Ranjan, if I can get your perspective, sir. We've heard from the UP minister, from the IT secretary on UP's path, its vision, the kind of incentives that it is rolling out, the red carpet that it's been rolling out. We've heard from a lot of ministers as well. As someone who's leading the Electronics Corporation in charge of drafting the whole semiconductor policy, very ambitious policy. Take us through, the progress so far, your own expectations, and how are you encouraging this design ecosystem, skill ecosystem, because that is still a challenge, as the previous panelists have said.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. And, as you said, and Parag rightly pointed out that government should, look at, bringing the whole ecosystem together and probably some top-down approach also. So I would like to just highlight that UP government is creating inflection point for itself in the Honorable Chief Minister's dynamic leadership. We have dedicated 1,000 acres semiconductor park near the Jewar Airport, which is going to be operationalized very soon. We have a very vibrant ecosystem. The semiconductor policy, piggybacking on the central government's policy, we are with open arms. We are inviting not just the big companies but also the startups. We have a vibrant ecosystem of startups in UP who are actually designing chips, and we are helping them from our startup policy. Whereas we have 1,000 crores of fund the UP government has dedicated for such startups who maybe in deep tech they are working. Apart from the incentives that UP semiconductor policy offers, there is a huge market that UP has, and keeping that a longer horizon in the view, we have got this kind of vision where we would like to have the big companies, the smaller players. Already in the Greater Noida sector, we have a lot of design companies
Yeah.
which are working here. Roughly, we have NXP, we have, ARMS
Yeah,
and all.
in fact, a lot of R&D
R&D
setups
is
from
there.
NXP, Qualcomm, and
Yeah.
so on. Yeah.
So I mean, UP is doing well in design centers. We have got the talent. We have got the IITs and the triple IITs. So, a lot of academia industry linkage is on the cards. We are keenly looking towards the ISM 2.0.
Yeah.
Where the horizon is going to be expanded for the entire ecosystem, chemicals, scaling, and the manufacturing part is also going to be taken care of. So we are keeping an eye on that, and we'll follow the path that central government shows. So all in all, I just would like to share that UP is not just trying to catch the wind, but also has a vision for the longer future, and we would like to create that ecosystem here, as in electronic sector that we already have.
Right. So, Nikul, good news for you. They are doing a lot with respect to startups, and they have a big fund as well.
Definitely. Actually, it's a Modi and Yogi. So Gujarat and UP is the simple. Who is the next after Modi? People are saying Yogi. So I can say my next branch would be in UP.
That's too dicey for me to talk about. But Athar, give us your perspective. You guys have put together such an extensive report on the whole.
It's difficult to read. Look, each country will follow its own path of why they need semiconductor as an industry. And it's very important that as we think a vision for our own country, we should be very clear on what we are trying to build when you talk about a stack. For example, this industry is one of the most complex industry.
Yeah.
This is an industry which is highly capital intensive. So if, for example, the choice of node determines how much capital we are going to put in. So let's say India has been smart around thinking about 28 nanometer nodes. They have not tried to attract sub 10 or sub 20 node because, for example, you are talking about $20 billion excess of money if you're sub 20 nanometer. That's the kind of capital intensity you need. So the step one, for example, as we think about ecosystem, India's semiconductor industry has a large demand coming from its electronics industry, and these two industries have a strong adjacencies. India's semiconductor industry has a very large demand coming from automobile industry, especially now EVs coming in. And India's semiconductor industry will have a very strong demand coming from possibly the whole 5G, 6G focus, that is the telecom industry, and even the healthcare focus or the medical devices that we look into. So that's the step one of thinking about the right choice of fabs or OSATs that we have been thinking about. I think the second step is, as we think about the large industry, India, where is India's competitive advantage? India's competitive advantage lies in that globally 20 to 25% of the design talent for the world is in India around Bangalore. Now, if those people want to have entrepreneurial journey, people who have worked for Intel and Qualcomm, and see this as a great opportunity to move out of big brands and start setting up their own design startups for Fabulous, for RISC-V platform, and there are many other platforms, whether for AI or IoTs they put in. What is the ecosystem the government and policy makers are making, which differentiates the new startups that are coming in, trying to attempt some of this? The DLI does a bit of that, which is the design linked incentive under the larger semiconductor. Can we take a leadership around this to say we have become a leader in this whole design ecosystem that's coming in, and we are promoting some of the startups. Some of these startups will eventually. The second question is, I was in Bangalore on a Semicon meet of stakeholders. What is good really about this journey of India's semiconductor is that the government and private sector is working very closely, actively. So we are having a lot of 6 monthly, quarterly sessions on. Now, one of the startup guys said, "How many of you will trust me?" So right now, even in this play of ASML versus a new startup, whom will you go with? And that's where some kind of assurance and, for these startups to have some bit of certainty on their demand is clearly needed. And the last bit on your first question, I would say is,
India needs to start thinking about a bit of a vertical specialization on things they want to do. So for example, would we be known for, let's say, a lot of focus on auto chips and auto design? Will we be focused for, let's say, electronics industry use cases, or whether we will be
Or
on
EVs.
industrial IoT, whatever. So I think a bit of that focus, there's a lot to be done. It's an extremely competitive industry, and hence that's how the journey for India could be differentiated, and accordingly a bit of policy actions as well as investments actions could be taken.
Parag, do you agree with that we should first play to our strengths?
Yeah, our strength is design, right? And I don't think that there's not enough money. There is enough people selling stuff on internet. I say the chaddi paniyan on internet, and yet going IPO, right? So there is
Their
enough money.
IPOs are oversubscribed.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Okay.
That's a reflection of where we are as a society. But nevertheless, I think there's enough money. And coming to the capex part, I think on the design part, for the 3 billion or 4 billion capex for the manufacturing, imagine if you had invested 1 billion in startups, 10 million each, you would have got what, 100? When you have a critical mass of 100, you would get a unicorn or two from sales, not just by valuation. So again, the fundamental point also is mindset, right? I think we have to get away from this mindset. And I keep saying this, I have this favorite quote which says the road, I call this the Vivekananda route, right? The road to Delhi goes from Chicago. So until he was baptized by the white man, he was roaming around like a fakir in the country. So we need somebody out there to, bless us. So we always celebrate somebody who goes out and becomes the CEO of an American company. So until we get comfortable with our own skin, in our own stuff, right, I don't think we'll be able to. That mindset change is happening slowly. But once that does happen, eventually you'll get unicorns, you'll get all these big multinationals coming out of India.
Right.
That's been our, journey. So.
Right. Final 3 minutes. Just want to get closing remarks from all of you. Mr. Ravi Ranjan, your own perspective on what next, what's the next big ambition for UP? The HCL Foxconn project has got sanction from the central government. TARC not yet, but what more can we expect in terms of proposals, even on the design front, other ecosystem efforts?
So basically, we are very agile in terms of policy amendments, and in the next leg, UP is thinking of attracting the whole ecosystem, and obviously playing more strongly on the design part, because the already design ecosystem is there. So we are looking towards the ISM 2.0, and we would like to change accordingly. And I think the semiconductor park that we have already declared. So we would like to invite the investors and also the startups would like to particularly work in the design area. We would like to promote some IPs because in IP India is never forthcoming, and I think that we need to clinch that area also, where we need to have some Indian IPs working for the world. So that's where the the major share of value chain lies. So we would like to work closely with the academia and the industry so that we may promote such startups and possibly own some IPs in near future.
Right. Is that your aim, to create IP? I think even in IIT Madras is a startup called Mindgrove which wants to do something similar, but is that what you
Exactly. So actually, sir has mentioned correctly, for semiconductor, two things are mentioned: IP. And to design those IP, we need libraries from the foundries. Right. So if we have a one foundry, if we have a two foundry, then every has a different PDK files. Everyone has a different libraries. So IPs would be designed on different nodes with the different libraries. So I think that ecosystem is missing in India. So say example, we are building our chip, single core, where we are designing our own IPs. So we do not have a dependency of the in future, or we do not have to pay royalty to anyone. Similar way, if India will create their own IPs, like RISC-V is open source processor, Vega is creating a super job, we are using the Vega. But similar type, not only processor side, on analog side, some digital side, we also need some IPs, which would be integrated easily with the libraries. So that ecosystem, if we create, then we can create affordable chip. Cheap everyone will make, but India has to create affordable chip where we can compete with the market.
Got it. Athar, closing comments from you as someone who studied this industry closely. Also some perspective on Uttar Pradesh and its own positioning. I know the IT secretary, the previous session said we shouldn't keep comparing UP to other states. We should see this as an India approach. But what are the strengths as far as Uttar Pradesh is concerned?
So two things I'll say. For example, the scale of demand for skilled people will really, amplify in the next couple of years. If you see, we have almost 18, 20 odd investments of various kinds right now which is WIP, right? All of that will become operational. And hence the demand for people to work, whether on the OSAT side or on the fab side will, expand massively in the next 12 to 24 months. And that's where, really focusing on and working closely with those players to really, supply the talent UP has always been known for. I think that becomes very critical to really become one of the exporters of global talent for this industry. I think, sir, on your point on a park in Jewar or closer to Jewar, one of the key issues right now, if you ask anybody, we are quietly closely working in Dholera's Semicon investments and one more place that's coming in. I think the supply chain ecosystem right now is very broken for whatever industry we are talking about. We still don't have a good understanding of how to handle these gases, and some of them are very, very complex gases. We don't have a place where these clean rooms can be, and a framework for managing clean rooms. Right now, even if machinery is coming in, where do you keep these, specific machineries while the construction is happening? So the whole logistics needs to come in. So a bit of a focus on enabling that supply chain of the whole semiconductor industry as it comes up will be critical, because specifically from a UP angle, a lot of part of semiconductor industry is a deep red and orange industry. So we will have to really think about how do we manage a bit of these effluents that will come in, a bit of the gases that are going to be managed over there. And if we are being comprehensive about it, the beauty is a lot of this industry's output moves in the belly of air cargo. So as the Jewar airport comes in and it becomes one of the largest airports on this side, there's a very strong, and there's a big case study in Thailand, how the growth of tourism in Thailand enabled the growth of electronics and semiconductor industry, because as more and more planes were landing in Bangkok, in the belly of those planes, because tourists don't carry a lot of stuff with them, the whole supply chain cost was minimized. And that's a great opportunity in terms of if we are building something big around Jewar Airport, that's a huge opportunity to really think about what kind of air cargo will be generated and how do we align with that.
Great.
Just 2 seconds about the question of the competition you said, right? One of the, it's collaboration. One of the things that we have been doing called D2M has been incubated in UP and implemented in Karnataka. So IIT Kanpur actually incubated it. So in that sense, there's a lot of cross collaboration that's possible. I don't think we need to compete.
Great.
A lot of
Great. On that note, thank you all very much for joining us for this session. Great insights on what next can be done and how to leverage the existing strengths that we have. Thank you all very much for joining us.